Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to DATEABLE. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of DATEABLE.
Do you ever feel like maybe you're just so much happier single that maybe your default setting is single versus trying to get in a relationship?
Are you allowed to say that?
I know. Is that illegal?
Although it's becoming trendy to be single, right? We saw that Our Boyfriend's Embarrassing Now article, and there's been a lot of stuff that's circulating. And I think all of this is like net good in the sense that it doesn't pit like being single is bad and being in a relationship is good. And this conversation really isn't about single is better. It's more of like, what is authentic to you? What is the best for you? And don't feel like I have to fit into a mold because society tells me so.
And lucky for you, here's an expert who has devoted her entire professional life researching the single experience. Her name is Dr. Bella DePaulo. She's an acclaimed social scientist, leading expert on the single life, and has been described by The Atlantic as America's foremost thinker and writer on the single experience.
And she's not just an academic. She's living proof, living through being single, what she calls single at heart. And, you know, she shares this. She's 72. She has lived life. It's not a phase for her. Like, this is what it is, you know? And she has written on this topic. She's the author of the book Single at Heart, which is what we'll be discussing, but also Singled Out and How We Live Now. And she's written the Living Single blog for Psychology Today since 2008. So she's been living the single life and advocating for it for a long time.
And in this episode, you get to hear Bella talk about what it means to be single at heart and what are some of the common myths. How do you know that you're actually single at heart versus you're doing it out of spite because you've had bad dating experiences?
Right. And we're going to talk about the unapologetic joys of single life and why people may be living their best life being single. And this is really good if you are the type of person that's like, actually, maybe I do just want to be single. Or if you're the type of person that's like, I do want a relationship, but I'm in a season of my life where I'm single. It doesn't mean that you need to be like miserable if you're not ultimately where you are. I know for me, letting go of like even finding a relationship and being like, life being single is pretty freaking good. That mindset is actually what helped me get into a relationship.
And if you've ever wondered, well, single's fun for now, but what if when I get older? Hear from our guest. She is 72. She's still thriving, living in single at heart, that kind of mindset and lifestyle. So yeah, you're in good hands with this one if you're ever wondering about what the future holds for you.
And she is living proof that you can be surrounded by people, and being single doesn't mean being lonely. It doesn't mean, you know, never having a sexual experience. Like there's a lot of, you know, things that we're going to debunk here. So that's a good one.
Yay. And if you are single and trying to understand whether you are single at heart or not, you can obviously pick up Bella's book and then also go into our studio app because we have this AI-enabled dating coach that has been trained by us through 10 plus years of doing this podcast. And that coach will talk you through whether you're single at heart or not and how to really thrive while being single.
So make sure to check out studio.com/dateable and also go pick up How to Be Dateable if you haven't yet. It's a great book to get you into a good mindset of feeling good no matter your stage and setting you up for what you ultimately want in life, whether that's a relationship or living single. Well, before we get into it with Bella, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Okay, let's hear it from Bella about being single at heart.
Are you meant to do life single? Maybe a question not many of us ever thought of because society would tell us otherwise. You're meant to be in a relationship. But for some people, maybe the answer is yes, that the default is being single. And that's why we have someone here today who is all about this idea of single at heart. And for people who are drawn to the single life, this is the conversation for you. So welcome to our show, Bella.
Thank you so much for welcoming me.
Yeah, we're so excited to dive into this because, I think as soon as this came through as like an idea for a topic, we were just, both of us were like, we got to do it because, everyone's always thinking, I need to get into a relationship.
Yeah.
And I guess from your perspective, what qualifies someone for being single at heart?
For those of us who are single at heart, single life is our best life. It's our most meaningful, fulfilling, and authentic and psychologically rich life. It's who we really are. For us, we are happy and flourishing because we are single, not in spite of it. And the risk to us is not what we would miss if we did not put a romantic partner at the center of our lives, but what we would miss if we did.
That is so beautiful and also so thought-provoking because you're saying some people, they are thriving single and they may be in and out of relationships, but the single life is what's meant for them.
Yeah.
How do we tell the difference between someone who is meant to be single versus someone who is just like, I gotta be happy being single until I get in a relationship because I know deep down I'm better in a relationship?
Yeah. Well, you can tell by how people tell their stories. Some people tell the stories of how, they really wanted to be in a relationship and they had such awful experiences and they got tired of dating. And so they're kind of resigned to being single. For the single at heart, it's different. I mean, it's possible for single at heart to have bad relationship experiences and all that, but they are single because they're drawn to what single life has to offer. The freedom, the solitude, the option of paying as much attention to as many different people as you want, caring for as many different people as you want, without some romantic partner thinking that time and attention belongs primarily to them.
So are there like any personality traits that you've observed, like someone that's like hyper independent, for instance, that maybe leans into really identifying with all this?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it hyper independence because that makes it sound like there's nothing else. For most people who are single at heart, I mean, we all love our independence, but most of us also have warm and close relationships that we value. And when we talk about relationships, we don't mean romantic relationships. We talk about relationships in the big, extensive, open-hearted meaning of any people in your life that are important to you, friends, relatives, mentors, etc. As for traits, I think to be single at heart, you need to be open-minded and have some confidence, or at least to embrace your single at heart status. You need that confidence because we're going against the grain and, people don't believe us. They'll say things like, oh, you just think you're happily single, you just haven't met the right person yet, or wait till you get older. Well, I'm 72, so I don't think I'm going to change my mind.
You're like, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. And open-mindedness is part of that too, that you're open to doing life in the way that feels most authentic and fulfilling to you, rather than living the life that you're expected to live, that other people want you to live.
Now, do you think that it is a default mindset or is it a phase in life? Like, can you be single at heart during certain phases of your life and then go switch to wanting to be in a relationship?
It's mostly the other way around. We are so brainwashed to think that putting a romantic partner at the center of our lives is the only way to live a good life, and that, of course, everybody wants to do that. So a story I hear again and again from people who are single at heart is that they tried it. They tried to make themselves fit into the prescribed societal mold. And it just doesn't work for them. Now, the stories I find most important are from the single at heart people who did find the one, who found someone they loved, who loved them. An example was someone who was engaged, and she found that as the day of her wedding was approaching, she wasn't happy. And she talked to her fiancé about it. She said, I want to travel the world. I want to do this and that. And he said, well, you can, you can do that. Even if we have kids, we can take the kids. And she thought to herself, but that's not what I want to do. I want to be on my own. And so what's important about stories like hers are that they show that it's not just that you never met the love of your life. She did.
What was your story? Like, how did you turn? Like, what was that pivotal moment that you're like, no, actually, this is authentic to me?
Well, I never wanted to be married. And for the longest time, I thought, well, I'm just slow in getting there. I thought like maybe wanting to get married was like getting bitten by a bug. And I hadn't gotten bitten yet. And after a while, I realized, no, I was never going to want that. That single was who I really was. And once I realized that, it was transformative because then I could just really embrace my single life, buy that house I was thinking about, and go all in on the study of people who are single and pursuing my mission to change what it means to be single, to change the narrative and introduce a much more affirming story about what it can mean to be single.
You never thought you wanted to get married. Did you want to be in relationships?
No, I wanted to want to be in relationships because that's what you're supposed to do. And so I would go through this mental thing with myself like, oh, well, maybe it would be okay if I just didn't see the person very often. So I was on vacation once and I was introduced to this couple. One person lived in New York and the other one lived in the state of Washington. And I thought, maybe that could work. And then I realized, I just don't want this. And it's not because I had any bad experiences.
Yeah.
When I was very young adult, I did do some dating. I had some romantic relationships that lasted a few months. And I have no dating horror stories. When I think about those guys, I still smile. I kind of like them. But when each of those relationships ended, I was so happy because I got to go back to my one true love, my single life.
So it's interesting just to make sure I'm fully following.
Okay.
Being single at heart, does that mean that you still could decide, I want to date and I just don't want to be in a relationship? To find, either companionship or even something sexual? What's kind of the line here? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So being single at heart is open to every possibility except putting a romantic partner at the center of your life and building your life around that person. So, for example, there are single at heart people who enjoy dating, and they tell their partners right from the beginning that they're not looking for a committed relationship. There are people who enjoy friends with benefits. There are single at heart people who are sexually open-minded. One of the people who shared her stories with me told me about the I guess you would call it sort of kinky things she likes to do. And that might not be so, acceptable in a committed romantic relationship.
Right.
I suppose, you could find somebody who is up to that. But as a single at heart person, she felt really free to experiment without judgment. Solo poly people can be single at heart, so they have several meaningful relationships without prioritizing one person as the key person. One single at heart woman told me about how in college she actually loved hookup culture because she would have these times when she would be with a guy, and they would be like, she told me between, I think, 2 and 6 a.m. and, and they'd have sex and they might have meaningful conversations. But then she was really happy that those hookups did not intrude on the rest of her college life, where she wanted to be with her friends and study and pursue all sorts of opportunities to be in different clubs or learn new things. And so that's a possibility. And then another one said, I have a great toy box, and every once in a while I take out my old battery-powered friends.
Those are the best, most reliable friends.
Right. Yes.
I like this distinction, though, that it's not like you are asexual because you're single.
Right. Right. Although people who are asexual are often single at heart. Yeah.
I can also hear people saying, well, then people who are single at heart make the worst partners. Why would I want to date them? Because all they're going to do is deprioritize me and the relationship.
Yeah. Right. So, and that's why people who are single at heart are very straightforward about what they want. And there are other people who want to date or be with other people just for fun and don't want to ride that relationship escalator all the way up to the top with marriage and kids and all.
So could you be in a relationship still as single at heart? Like if there's someone that you wasn't at the center of your world, that you incorporated, but you kind of lived your own parallel lives? Or do you find that usually you're like not in a relationship?
Well, this is something that I had my mind changed about.
Okay.
Because of talking to various people who insisted they were single at heart, but they were in a committed romantic relationship. And what was different about them was that they were not enmeshed with their partner. So they either had separate places, what people call living apart together. They wanted their own place. And not because they wanted to be able to cheat, but because they liked their space. They liked their time to themselves. So there's that. Other people lived together, but they had separate parts of their apartment or their house that were theirs. So they were people who shared key characteristics of the single at heart. Namely, they liked some freedom. They liked their solitude. They liked having time and space to themselves. So I had to be persuaded of that. And when they take the quiz, they typically they don't score the very highest on the single at heart quiz, but they score close enough to qualify. So that is a possibility.
What's high enough to qualify?
Well, to be clearly single at heart would be, 13 or 14, maybe 12. But then, you can be single at heart in most ways, and that would be maybe 9 to 12.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Julie and I were sharing our scores. I actually think I'm more single at heart than not.
Yeah.
But I like being in relationships. But like when you just described having separate houses or separate wings of the house, like that's me. And my ideal is like not to be enmeshed with my partner. Your business is your business, my business is my business. And I scored a 9. So I was like telling Julie, I'm not as single at heart as I thought I was.
Maybe we need to refine the scale. Maybe there's something we're missing about your life that, or something that we thought was important that isn't as important as we thought. But thank you. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think as you were just describing this, I was like, this is UA to the T. But we had this conversation. I actually, it's interesting. I mean, I'm married now, so I feel like by default, I'm not going to score very high. I was in like the bottom. And I think I'm interesting because I feel like like for most of my life, I was like a later bloomer. So I just like, really developed my single self and had a huge emphasis on like, developing a career and, friendships and my own life. And I always wanted a relationship, but I think like looking back, I didn't fall into the pure single at heart bucket. Like it was more like it felt out of reach or it felt difficult. So I kind of like got comfortable. And, I think there are sides of me that, enjoy the single life and very much loved my experience.
Yeah.
But I do think that like my deep desire is to like live with another person and build with another person.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my friends, a close friend, told me once, she's married. She said, I'm married. I love it. But I could have been perfectly happy single.
Well, I do think that. I actually do believe that. Like, I actually got to a place before I met my husband that I was like, if this is single life, like, it's pretty freaking good. So I definitely think there is a side of me that's like that. But now that I've had this, I have liked this ability to build. That being said, there are nights of the week that we will do our own thing because we're like, we need our separate time. And my husband's the same way. He's like, I need my downtime on a Sunday. And like we have like one night every week on Monday nights that we like literally sit in different rooms and do our own thing.
Yes. One of the really fun things about having published this Single at Heart book is people start telling me things that they never told me before. Like this one couple, this married couple who, seems to have a very great relationship, and I think they do. The man told me that when they travel, sometimes his wife wants her own room, her own hotel room. And I think, that's awesome. And thank you for telling me. Yeah. And, I want it to be totally acceptable, maybe even wonderful to get to admit that and not feel like, I never told you this before, but, it shouldn't be some big secret. It's kind of great. We should embrace our love of solitude and value that.
Let's hold that thought because we have a quick message from our sponsors. Time to get comfortable with Avocado Green Mattress. Their certified organic mattresses are specifically designed to relieve pressure points, support your body the way it needs, and help you actually get the deep, restorative sleep you've been missing. Every mattress is made with thoughtfully sourced materials and built with real care, so you get incredible sleep night after night. I'm proud to say I can now tell the difference between something that's just marketed well versus something that's actually well made. Like if I'm spending that much time in bed, hopefully sleeping, but occasionally spiraling, I want the mattress underneath me to actually support my body and my spiraling. It feels like one of those grown-up purchases where you're like, oh yeah, this is what quality feels like. Avocado products are made, not manufactured, and thoughtfully crafted with real materials to deliver lasting comfort and support. Go to avocadogreenmattress.com/dateable to check out their mattresses and furniture sale. That's avocadogreenmattress.com/dateable. avocadogreenmattress.com/dateable. I feel like summer always makes you reassess your wardrobe a little bit, right? You suddenly want lighter fabrics, softer materials, pieces that look polished without trying too hard. And that's exactly why I keep going back to Quince. They make high-quality essentials like breathable European linen, washable silk, soft organic cotton, but without the insane luxury markup. I am literally dressed head to toe in Quince right now, Quince linen that is, and it's basically become my personality at this point. I've got the linen tank and the matching linen pants. It's comfortable enough to wear all day, but I still feel put together on calls, errands, dinner, and even recording podcasts. And their stuff is surprisingly affordable. Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/DATEABLE for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable.
Well, I think there's something liberating about this whole conversation. I'm curious, Yue, since like you are really resonating with it. Like, do you feel like it kind of like lifts an expectation a little? Because that's like what I'm hearing from what you're saying.
I guess I'm still trying to understand because you only know what you know. And I'm trying to understand am I truly single at heart, or currently, or when I do find a partner who is able to complement my single tendencies, then we're able to be in a really healthy, thriving relationship together. I think that's what I'm trying to grapple with. It's like, am I still searching for that one person who can complement me, or should I just surrender and say, actually, single is the way to go?
You know what's so hard about that question is that the cultural conditioning is just so pervasive. I mean, we don't ever have this idea that, maybe single life is our best life. And so it's hard for any one person, such as yourself, to truly know. And I think of it like what was going on in the 1950s, especially with white women who believed that, a woman's place is in the home, and that even if they had higher education and all sorts of possibilities, that wasn't what they wanted, that their true fulfilling life was marriage and children. And at that point, it would have been hard for them and unlikely for them to say that they wanted anything more than that. In fact, there was a study done at that time with Vassar students. That's where I went to college, by the way. And these, students who are at an elite college were asked if they want, what they wanted, and they overwhelmingly said marriage and children. And then, decades later, that survey was repeated, and it was almost like an insult to be asked if they wanted anything more than, marriage and children. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that, but to assume that women would only want that all women would only want that, it's totally changed. So I think that's kind of where we are with single at heart, where we didn't grow up thinking that a loving single life is a thing. Another interesting thing about this is that because of that, I call it like mental blanketing instead of cultural conditioning. Like it's all over us. And because of that, sometimes we don't even tune in to the clues in our own lives about what it can mean to be single. So when I talk to classes or talk to, book clubs or whatever, sometimes people say, now that I think of it, I had this cousin who was, or this great aunt or something, who was single her whole life, and she was so amazing. Yeah. She had this great life. In fact, in one class that I taught, the student told me that she came from a big family and that almost everybody was married with children, and they had one person in the family who wasn't, and she was single her whole life, and they all felt sorry for her. And she said to me, just realizing it then in class when I was talking to the class about the book, she had a really great life. I don't know why they felt sorry for her. Her life was the more interesting life of all of theirs.
It's the cultural conditioning, because you can be in a miserable marriage, but for whatever reason, like the single person is looked at like they have like the short end of the stick. But I think there's this narrative of like when you get older, you're gonna not have anyone. All your friends are gonna go away. You're gonna be left behind. You're clearly living proof, Bella, that that's not the case. How would you assure people that? Because I think that's where people go is like maybe it's good now, but like what happens in 30 years, right?
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Well, the irony is that people who are single, and especially people who are single at heart, who aren't expecting to build a life around a romantic partner, typically have more friends. And they're and even single people who aren't single at heart are better at staying in touch with their friends. And several national surveys show this. They're more likely to be in touch with people in their network, to exchange emotional support or practical support or just be there. And what that means is that in later life, they are especially unlikely to have no one because they didn't do what research shows that a lot of couples who move in together or get married do, and that is to demote their friends. And research shows, they spend less time with their friends. They call their parents less often. It's like not everyone does this, but very often they become more insular. And it's like they take seriously those, romantic lyrics, you are the one, you're the only one I want. And I'm forgetting what they are, but you complete me, that kind of thing. And if they take those kinds of ideas seriously and focus overwhelmingly on their romantic partner, then later in life, if they get divorced or become widowed, they are the ones who are truly at risk of not having anyone because they demoted all those people, put them on the back burner. And now it's like, I know I ignored you for 30 years, but can we be friends again?
Yeah.
And that's harder.
Yeah. What's really tough is that this is a conversation, and I hope people understand, this is not a competition between a single person's life versus a coupled person's life, right? And it feels like that's always where the discussion goes. It's like, well, it's better to be single and it's better to be in a relationship. We're not trying to convince people of a lifestyle or another, but we're also shining light on how challenging it is for people who are truly single at heart to embrace that because of all the societal pressure. And I think speaking for myself, and I don't want to sound like pettiness is coming out, but I've spent my entire 45 years celebrating people's decisions. It's the engagement, wedding, kids' birthday parties, anniversaries, etc. But their society doesn't give much for there to celebrate a single person. So I think that is why so many of us go to, obviously, there's just more to celebrate when you're with somebody, right? So how do you tell your single at heart cohort to really lean into that? And even though society doesn't have the structure around the celebration of being single.
Yeah. And, there's a kind of story I hear over and over again that's about that, which is that there are people who say, I went to their wedding, I went to their shower, I showed up for the baby shower, brought baby presents, and then the single person hosts an event that they're really excited about. Maybe they have a special party for their 40th birthday or 50th or whatever. Or maybe, I love this, some single people want to celebrate their friendships. But then they find that the people who they showed up for, often at great expense, don't show up for them. Either they say, I can't make it, or maybe they RSVP, but then cancel at the last moment. And it's like our lives aren't taken that seriously. And that's hurtful. It really is. And that's one of the reasons I want to change the conversation. So one of the things that has helped around that issue is finding like-minded people. In 2015, I started this online Facebook group called the Community of Single People. And it's mostly for people who like being single. And we talk about every aspect of single life except dating or trying to unsingle ourselves. If you talk about that, you're out. So that's a wonderful space where we can talk about these kinds of experiences with like-minded people, get understanding and support rather than people saying, you're just bitter or, suck it up. So that's really important, I think. And, we support each other in ways that have the potential to make society better. Even small things like somebody will come to the community and say, I just went to a restaurant and I was by myself and I saw 3 booths that were open. And I asked to be seated in a booth. And they said, well, why don't you sit at the bar or something? And the person said, well, I would like to sit in a booth. And the staff person said, well, we don't have any booths available. And she could see that there were 3 of them available. And she told the person that she was unhappy, and she left. And then she came back to the group and told us about that. And we all, I think within the first hour, dozens of people had already weighed in and said, post on social media, do your Yelp reviews, make it known that this is not okay. And sometimes people react positively to that. They'll say, yeah, we should do better. And even if they resent it, which some people do resent getting told that wasn't a great thing that you did, I think it sticks with them. And maybe down the line, they will do better.
Yeah, it's sad. It probably is like capitalism that's like overpowering them. They're like, I could get double the amount by this one. But yeah, like the reminder of like it actually has different weight than you maybe are thinking. Like when you're, I think that's important. I was going to ask about the different life stages because I feel like I can see this from both perspectives now. When I was single, I was one of the I wasn't the last of my friends to get married, but I was on the later end. I got married at 42. So a lot of them had been married, had kids, like all that, right? And there was a period that like a lot of my friends went down that path like 10 years earlier than me. And I don't even know if it was like a conscious thing, but like obviously Yue and I became good friends and I became good friends with other people. And I think it was like just having people that were on the same wavelength as me. It didn't mean like I got rid of my old friends. It just was like a redirection of people that maybe saw me more for like, who I was and where I was. And I think like now I'm in the opposite side. I have like friends that maybe are like actually like requiring a lot of effort and like they're getting upset, like you were saying, like when people don't show up and stuff. And I get that, but I also see the point of like the friends that have children or other responsibilities. Like it's not like they're choosing not to go just because they don't want to. Like sometimes they truly can't because they have other dependents on them. So my take has always been like, find your people that are in your life stage. Don't get rid of the people, but like maybe your expectations, like they become more of like a stored closeness, not like an active closeness. What's kind of your take on that?
Oh, that's an interesting. Yeah, I think that's true. The part about giving married with children people a pass because they're busy. Okay, but when they can find time for their other friends.
Yeah, I think it's different if you cancel all the time versus like once in a while. And I'm not talking about those scenarios. I'm talking about like when someone like really demands like a lot of time.
Yeah, I think what you said is right about finding your people. That's just so important. And one of the things that has happened in the community of single people, even though it's online, is that a lot of us have met people in person. So when I was doing a book tour for Single at Heart, at every stop, I would announce to the Single at Heart Facebook group where I was going to be and ask them if they wanted to meet. And we'd meet for dinner right after my book talk. And so it was wonderful. I got to meet people all around the country who loved the Single at Heart book and were part of the community of single people. And, there are other ways too. For a while, there was a next door group in my area that was started by a woman who said, I don't know, I think she was 60-something or something. She said, I'd love to get together with other single women. And so we had this meetup group of single women who were a little older, and that was really nice for a while. I've enjoyed socializing with some couples who are at the empty nest stage. Can really be great. They can just be really good friends to single people. I've had some of them. And also, I have married friends who do not feel scotch taped to their partner. There are married women who I socialize with independently. We go out to lunch or dinner together or do things together. And that's okay with her husband or their husbands. And I think that's nice too. I met a guy at a writers' conference here at Santa Barbara, and he and I stayed friends, and we had dinner about once a month or a little more every year for like 17 years and he's in assisted living now in a different town. But, that was a wonderful friendship. So I think there are possibilities, but you're right. It's so great to just find your people.
Do you think that people who are truly single at heart should just not attempt a long-term relationship? And I'm asking this because there was a married couple I knew that never hung out together. And every time we go out,
interesting.
Every time we hang out with the husband, he's like, oh yeah, my wife is doing her own thing. Or I hang out with the wife separately. She's like, we have such separate lives. Like, we're just so independent. It's so cool. Like, we really give each other space. And for years they were like this. And for our mutual friends, we were like, they are the role models for what a marriage should be. They're just so cool and like so confident in their relationship. And then to our surprise, last year they filed for divorce because apparently things had been breaking down for a long time. And when I finally spoke to the husband, the wife, don't know where she disappeared off to, but the husband was like, when you are so independent from each other, you grow apart. And then you stop addressing any issues because you no longer prioritize your relationship. So those issues really build over time. And then you realize this is not sustainable. And they had kids and everything. So do you, to me, I kind of felt like those were two people who were single at heart, who wanted to attempt a long-term relationship. But maybe some people just shouldn't.
Yeah, but you've got to figure out who you are. So the people I was telling you about who insisted that they were single at heart, and yet they had this committed relationship, the ones that were living apart together or had their own space in their apartment or their house. Yeah, that worked for them. And so far as I know, they're all very much together. So the couple you described, that's a possibility too. Going back to the point you made earlier, which was really important, that it's not a competition. What I really want to see happen is that people are free to pursue the life that is most meaningful for them.
Right.
And, people who want to have a committed romantic relationship and live together and have kids and all that, they don't to question their choices. So my speaking for and about the single at heart is to underscore that as a real valid and potentially fulfilling possibility. And it's not because I want to make people who are married feel badly or think that their life is inferior or any of that. I want people to be able to embrace and build the life that works for them. And I think that, there are all sorts of possibilities and they're multiplying, as people feel freer to go off the beaten track of, marriage, children, etc. And that's really a good thing. And what I'm trying to do is get rid of the stigma.
Yeah.
Or the disbelief, the skepticism that anyone could want something different. And my particular concern is with the single at heart. But in the bigger picture, I want people to feel free to create whatever life really works for them.
Right. I think the part that is still like for me that maybe I'm curious what your take on this is, because like when I was single, I was like, I can do life like this. This is great. But I did see that, everyone's goal around me was still to find a partner and, move on. So then I was like, the thought is, okay, like I have all these people to do stuff with now, but once they find a partner, now they're going to go build a life with someone else. And then who's building a life with me? I guess my question for you is, the first part is like, is that even a thought for someone single at heart? Are they like, okay, just building their life on their own? Or do they find other single at heart people to build together with as like their go-to people?
Most of us do have important and valued relationships. There are a few people who are single at heart who really like their solitude and they spend some time with other people, but they really are homebodies or private people. But most of us do have these important people in our lives. And, like I was saying before, it can, in a way, work out better for us because we're not demoting people and putting them on the back burner. Now, it can be hard, when all your friends are getting married. And that's why it's important to do, like you said, and, find your people who are as you are. But also, as I mentioned, finding the people in your life who are not, and what you might call enmeshed with their partners so that they don't want to see you or they only want to see you with their partner.
But what about the part about building? Because I think this is something I think about a lot. And I think like Yue and I, we have built this podcast together. So in a way, we have built.
Nice. We have a baby.
But we do, right? But we have
that's wonderful.
But we have a bond that's different than other friends of mine that I'm not actively building with.
Right.
I mean, I think it can also show up if you're doing like holidays together or sharing traditions.
Yes,
I think that's a way of building too.
Yes.
I guess from your perspective, what are ways, if you're not going to go start a podcast or a business with a friend, which not everyone's going to do, like what are some ways you can like build with someone that it feels like you're sharing a life, not just like living coexisting lives?
Right. Well, I'm on the West Coast now, but I used to teach at the University of Virginia, and I had a set of friends. Most of them were single, but not all. And we would have this meeting time. There's this downtown mall in Charlottesville with lots of interesting restaurants, and we would meet there regularly, like maybe once a week sometimes, but at least once a month. And that, that was routine. We used to also have this other thing we did, which was Sunday night watching bad TV. We'd get together at one of our homes, often mine, and have, snacks and maybe wine or whatever, and watch some terrible but funny TV show and, bond over that. I was also, when I was in Charlottesville, I was in a cooking club that lasted for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And about once a month, we would get together and, we'd have a theme, Indian or Italian or, whatever. We went through lots of different cuisines and we'd each bring something and we'd rotate which house it was at. And so you kind of get close to people that way too.
I like that. So it's a lot of like ritualized moments together and like carved out time. Yeah.
Right.
And I guess we have to understand that we can start doing that ourselves. We don't have to wait for the moment or the opportunity. You can be the one to start the tradition amongst your friend group.
I want to dive into this even more, but before we do, let's take a quick break to hear from our partners.
Your home is more than just furniture. It's an extension of who you are, and the details matter more than you think. Like a rug. The right rug can completely transform how a space feels. And that's why I'm obsessed with my Ruggable. I went with this warm, neutral, boho-inspired design for my living room with earthy tones and a fun pattern. And it instantly made the whole space feel more intentional. Like, oh, someone put some thought into this. And what sealed the deal for me is that it's completely machine washable. Like my dog Mojo does not care about interior design, and neither does Red Wine, apparently. So I've thrown it in the wash and it comes out looking brand new every time. It's built for real life. Refresh your home at Ruggable.com. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with promo code DATEABLE at Ruggable.com. That's RUGGABLE.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout.
If you felt stuck trying to lose weight, you're not alone. Enter Weight Loss by Hers. It's designed to support you in reaching your goals. And Hers now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hers, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first GLP-1 available in a pill, so there are no needles needed. Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Weight Loss by Hers goes beyond medication by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and tons of in-app lifestyle and nutrition tips like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Even better, with a range of affordable GLP-1 options, Hers makes it simple to find an approach that fits your needs and your budget if eligible. You'll get a treatment plan personalized to you and unlimited dosage changes as needed. It's weight loss designed to work with your life. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/women to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/women. forhers.com/women. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk A/S. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Now, Bella, I know you don't have a scientific answer to this, but if you have to, if you have to make a guess of what percentage of the population is single at heart, what would be your best guess?
The percentage who are single at heart and know it is pretty low because the concept isn't out there. The percentage who actually are and have yet to discover it or have yet to understand that being single at heart is a thing, I would guess is maybe 20%.
Wow.
But maybe not. I don't know. There are these national surveys done in 30 European countries, and they ask people if, and this is about 200, 300,000 people, if they want single people, if they're looking for a partner, and on average, 23% of them say no. You know, that's different. You can not want a partner for reasons other than being smart. But also, the Pew Research Center in the U.S. has done these national surveys where they ask single people, you know, people who are not married, not cohabiting, and not in a committed romantic relationship. So they ask them if they want a romantic relationship. And they find that at least half of them in 2 different surveys are not interested in a romantic relationship or even a date.
Right. What's interesting, though, is when we've heard those stats, because we have heard them too.
Yeah. You have?
Yep.
Oh, good.
And we've interpreted them, though, of being frustrated by dating, not necessarily desiring. Because, I mean, at least from the worldview that you and I sit through, we get a lot of people that want love. They want partnership, but they're so frustrated that they've just given up. And it's hard to tell sometimes like where it's coming from. Is it coming from fear of putting yourself out there or like your actual true desire? Like how can people, I know we talked about it a little, but like how can people get to the root of this more? Because I think that is like the challenge.
Yeah. Well, you know, in one of those Pew surveys, they asked the single people who said they don't want it to be in a relationship, they're not looking for a partner, and they asked them why. And they gave them all these different alternatives, which included, you know, negative ones like the ones you said, some kind of neutral ones. Well, the alternative that the most people agreed with was, I just like being single.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you know? So the Single at Heart quiz, which is in the book, gives you some hints as to that. One of my favorite items was the one that says, if you have been in a romantic relationship and it ended, how did you feel? And people who are not single at heart, will say they're heartbroken, they're sad, all the rest.
Yeah.
Single at heart people might say, they feel a little bit sad, but they also feel relief. They like going back to their single life. And that's important. The other one that was much more powerful than I realized was liking solitude. So one of the questions is, how do you feel if you know that you're going to have an expansive time by yourself? And people who are not single at heart will say, oh no, I might be lonely.
Yeah.
And people who are single at heart will say, sweet solitude.
Yeah, I get that. I had this conversation with my girlfriend, who I think is probably a little bit more single at heart than I am. But we were saying, someone asked us if we were in a healthy relationship and we were happy and we wanted to get out of the relationship. And if someone asked, like, why do you want to get out? What would be our answer? And instead of saying, I think there's someone better out there for me, I think our answer collectively would be, I think I'd be better on my own, or I'd be happier on my own. And that's kind of the differentiator. Yeah, it's not like I think there's someone better out there. It's just I think I'm better off on my own.
This is who I am. Give them the Single at Heart book.
I mean, I think a big part of pursuit of a romantic partner is we've been told this is how you find a meaningful life. Not saying I agree with that, but that's been the narrative that's been fed. How would you say that you could find a meaningful life without a partner? Like, what does that look like?
Oh my gosh. Well, in some ways, I think you have a greater possibility for an expansive life because you can follow your own interests and passions. When I was at the University of Virginia, I went on sabbatical out here in California in Santa Barbara. And when the end of the year came, I really didn't want to go back to the University of Virginia. I mean, that was fine, but I loved it out here. It just felt like I found my place. And the thing was, I didn't have a full-time job, so it was a risk, but I decided I'm going to do this. And I could because I didn't have a partner who, what would they do if they were to come out here and would they resent it and all the rest of it. And then coming out here, I really kind of embraced and pursued what I loved. So I was in a place that I loved. I decided to go all in on my research on single people. I used to have this other area of expertise on the psychology of lying and detecting lies. If you Google cues to deception or, accuracy at detecting lies, my name will come up. And, that was fun. But it was nothing like doing research and writing about being single.
That's fascinating. I know you said you didn't want marriage. Did you ever want kids?
No, I never did. And again, I wondered about that too, when I changed my mind. And, I adored my niece and nephews, and especially when they were little. But now, in a different way, now that they're grown up, they're really special. But I think a really interesting moment for me was a time when I stopped by the home of one of my colleagues, and he was at work and his wife was at home with this adorable child they had. I think he was around 4 or 5 years old, and he was sitting at the table coloring, and there was sunlight behind him coming in from the window and making his hair glow. And it's like, if you wanted a picture to promote parenthood, this would be it. And, he was very quiet and contented, and his mom was, around there. And I thought to myself, if this were my life, I would go stark raving mad. Not because I don't like kids, but it would just be boring to me.
And do you think most people who are single at heart just don't want kids?
Oh, the majority don't want, but there are people who are single at heart and do have kids. And rather than feeling like, oh, poor me, it's just me and my kids, they feel like they have a special bond with their children, that their children are spared of any conflict and inconsistency in parenting styles or, what sometimes happens when parents move toward divorce. And many of them build whole social support systems for their children. One of my favorite stories was from a woman who adopted her daughter. And when she did, she invited like a dozen people to be godparents. And they were people who had different kinds of interests and different kinds of ways of connecting to her child. So she built this support system from the day she brought her child home.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess for anyone, as a last question, for anyone that is feeling like this really resonates, what's one piece of advice you would leave someone to not resist staying single, but to lean into it?
Live your single life fully, joyfully, and unapologetically. And read Single at Heart.
I love it.
Sorry, I had to get that in there.
Yeah, you got it.
I mean, I think this conversation has been so wonderful. I mean, I think the obvious takeaway is like, you do you. You find the life that completes you. Like, I like this. There's no better or worse. I don't know where in our like lexicon it became like you've won if you're in a relationship and you've lost if you're single. Like, that is so not true. What ultimately serves you. But I do think it can be hard to figure that out. Given where we are in the world and the questions like, have I just not met the right person yet? Or is this authentic? So definitely check out your book, but also just like, reflect back, like if being in a relationship wasn't mandatory, like would, what would you feel like if the pressure was relieved? If you knew in 20 years or 30 years that like you wouldn't be alone, you would still have people in your life, would that change your decision? So I think all of this hopefully, resonated, whether you're truly single at heart or even a passing moment, appreciating being single. Even if you're like, no, after all listening to this, I still do desire partnership.
Yeah, and that's fine.
That's fine. But I think that like you can also appreciate those moments in your life.
Right. And appreciate other people and realize that if you were feeling sorry for someone who seems totally happy with their single life, maybe don't.
And like asking people why they're still single and just all the terrible questions that we somehow feel are normalized to ask.
Right.
Exactly.
No, this is so wonderful. And we often talk about this as like DIYing your own love life. You get to DIY it the way you want it to. And you don't need to put definitions around how you want to have a love life, but you can certainly create it and customize it for yourself. And I think for anyone who is in a relationship or wants to be in a relationship, but can go towards more of the single at heart scale, like I am, I think it's also important for your partner to understand where you fall.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes the miscommunication is when people who are single at heart want to do their things in solitude. They're not doing it with other people. They're truly wanting the solitude.
Yes.
But for others who may not understand that, they're like, oh, you must be with other people. Like, you must be spending that time with other people. But maybe, sometimes, like for me, when I'm going off on my own, I truly just want to be on my own by myself. So it's important for the partner to understand that too.
Yeah, the cliche, it's not you, it's me. Well, with the single at heart, that's true. It is them.
There you go. You can use it there.
And I guess I'd like to say just one thing about love. People who are single at heart have more open-hearted, expansive understandings of love. So love isn't just romantic. You can have love of your close friends, cherished relatives, mentors, the special people in our lives, children, and as I'm always reminded, pets.
Love that. I'm so glad that you brought that up. Well, for anyone that wants to get a hold of your book, where can they go to find more about you and to get the book?
Oh, well, my website is belladepaulo.com. And if it's easier, just Google Single at Heart and my name will come up. The book should be in It's on the usual online places, but you should also be able to find it at your local bookstore, your local library. And if it's not there, tell them to get it because you want it and other people do too.
Love it.
Yes. Bella, so wonderful to hear your side of your story and where you came from with the single at heart idea, which is something I feel like now people who feel this way now have permission to feel this and embrace this and go live this. So thank you for giving us permission to do that. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode.
Dateable.
Single.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.